And we're live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Good Thing. I'm joined, as always, by my host, Jens. Jens, how you doing today?
What's wrong with you? Where's
Hi.
the energy?
The energy's here. What do you mean? I just did my intro. I said, what's up, and I'm bringing everybody in. But how are you doing
Okay.
today?
Yeah, it's good. Sunny day in Germany. It's getting warmer. Kids are starting to play in the garden, and yeah, it's good.
That's awesome. And I'm super excited about today's episode because we're talking about a lot. I mean, this morning we were just doing a little small demo of what the future is coming to be. And this week has been crazy for tech. I mean, first we're going to talk about the Tobi AI memo, which is crazy for Shopify. We're going to talk about MCP. We're going to talk about the S and what it stands for. And what I'm really, really excited about is just kind of like where we're going on the AI direction. And so let's kind of just kick it off. Jens, what are you seeing right now in the space, especially around AI?
Um, so for quite a bit, we were on a path to kind of plateau in what the models can do. I think the models are now quite good, but we can also see it currently doesn't look like AGI. But I also think it's not necessarily a bad thing, because what we're currently seeing is like an integration play coming, and it's something I would say it really excites us, because from the very beginning we were always super interested in helping integrate, and yeah, I think it's just interesting, if we speak about the elephant in the room, MCP, what it means, what it does, how it will change software development, for example, but also many other areas. And like for me, I'm not sure if we have this on the roadmap for today's session, but for me, a big topic would be to talk about the impact of MCP on software development. We just added MCP support in a very sophisticated way into Cosmo itself, which changes workflows. It and just in general, I think one thing I would like to show today is just the impact of MCP on software development workflows, and what I think MCP how it will change the DevTool space. Because in the past, when you were building DevTools or working with DevTools, it was always like you needed to build dashboards or whatever, and user interfaces to configure stuff. And I think this is rapidly changing with MCP. I have just built a couple of features into Cosmo, which, from my point of view, it changes how you can structure certain workflows, and yeah, I think it's exciting, and it's a big topic.
Yeah, I mean, it is the elephant in like every room. And like last night I was at dinner with my wife's parents and a couple of their friends. And they're a bit older, they're like in their 50s, and they were talking, and I asked them, I was like, well, I'm 27. You guys were alive and well when the internet was shifting, during the dot-com era and everything was changing. And then I kind of grew up and I saw the shift to cloud. I was there when Dropbox was released, and then I was there also when we shifted to the iPhone and Apple stores, and we went through all these shifts. But what I can't help but notice is this is probably the biggest shift of them all. Like it feels like we're in the dot-com boom again, but for AI, we're on this forefront of unexplored technology. It's just getting better each day. And if you remember, I think 2 years ago or a year ago when OpenAI was really when ChatGPT was released, if you compare it to what it is now and what it can do, and then I was talking to a friend, he just graduated college, and he's like, "How did you how did you finish your computer science degree without ChatGPT?" Like we're getting to that point now where people are like, "How did you do something before AI?" And so I think right now where we're at and everything that's changing, it's every single industry is going to change. So healthcare, technology, even like running a small business, everything is going to eventually have AI. And if you look now, you don't have an iPhone, Jens, but I don't know if they've started to add it to your Google Pixel, but they have now Apple Intelligence, which in the phone it does things to help automate your life, and it just adds AI. It summarizes messages together. It gives you smart shortcuts and things like that. And so I'm pretty sure that AI is going to be everywhere. Probably in your car soon. It's just going to be everywhere that you could even think of. Insane, right?
I have a MacBook.
You have a MacBook, but you don't have. Oh wait, you do have Apple Intelligence, but it's different on the phone.
Okay.
I'm going to be completely honest. It's not as good as I thought it would be, but it's getting better. So I'll give them that. But where we're going now with AI is absolutely insane. And so let's start off though before we go into like the demo of what we've been working on. Let's talk a little bit about the API or the AI memo is what we'll call it. So for those of you that don't know about the Amazon API mandate, this was released in what, like 2002 or something?
Mhm.
And Jeff Bezos made a mandate of like 10 rules that everything must flow, all information between teams must flow through APIs. And it's a famous memo, and it's called the API mandate. And what's crazy is we're seeing it again. And when we're seeing it, and I'll share my screen so we can jump right to it. But this is a leaked memo from Tobias Lütke from Shopify. And he got ahead of the curve and he jumped right into it. And he started to explain that usage and reflexive AI usage is now a baseline expectation at Shopify. So he's basically telling all his employees that you have to use AI alongside your journey of working at Shopify. And the biggest thing here is right here is that in their company, they grow 20 to 40% year over year. You must improve by at least that much each year just to requalify your position at Shopify. That goes for him as well as for everybody else. What's insane to me about that, 20 to 40% improvement per year is a lot, right?
Mm. I don't know. It's hard to quantify. So, but
I would say it is, but when you incorporate AI, which is exactly what he says out in the memo, is that it doesn't seem that hard of a fit because you can use AI to basically improve and go further out. But this is where it gets interesting. And Jens, I'd love your thoughts about this, but this is crazy. So, using AI effectively is now a fundamental expectation of everyone at Shopify. What do you think he means by that?
um, so we had similar discussions. Like we don't have such a mandate, but
Not yet. We're
we
not big enough.
we yeah we had similar discussions, and I think the most important thing, and this is like, if you work at Shopify or not doesn't matter, but uh, I think it is now a fundamental requirement for a developer to explore and understand how LLMs work. And it's not even about like liking it or not liking it, but understanding the trade-offs. For example, I don't know. I think people who don't do it, they are missing out, because um, you need to install tools like Cursor, Claude Desktop. You need to play with them. You need to understand how paradigms shift, because
Yes.
so earlier today we had a demo with our CTO Dustin, who showed us that he created an MCP server from a supergraph, and then he connected it to Claude Desktop, wrote a single prompt, and Claude Desktop built an entire dashboard with information about all employees in half a minute. No code was required. And it is not about like, you can now say, okay, this is simple, blah blah blah, and you can have opinions, okay. But I think what people need to understand is it's a paradigm shift. There's now something new, that it is now possible to do a certain workflow. It wasn't possible before, and you should be aware of it,
Yes.
because you're a software developer. You should understand what kind of systems are possible, because I think also, well, one super important thing here is, um, in the past you were always thinking that, okay, we have this architecture of, we build a backend, it has a database, we build a front end, we deploy a front end, and somebody can then use our front end. But with MCP and AI and what's currently happening, you can actually just build the API. because the front end almost builds itself.
Yes.
And yeah, of course, like not every front end builds itself. Like if you build like a, let's say you build a, I don't know, an app for baseball or whatever, like it's not that simple. But there are so many apps where all they need to do is show a bunch of data, create a table, create a diagram, some forms, whatever, like SAP style user interfaces, and now you don't need to code them anymore. And
Just talk to 'em.
if the user can now describe what kind of UI they want, and it can be built, and all we need is APIs exposed through MCP. I don't know. It's a new paradigm, and like it or not, but be aware of how it works and what it can do, and because I think we're going to see new products with this paradigm.
No, well said. And one of the things that was coming up to my mind here is um, 4 and 5 in the mandate. So learning is self-directed, but share what you learn. So that's obviously what we're doing at Wondergraph. But everywhere we're experimenting with these tools. We're sharing what works. We're sharing what doesn't work. But 5, I think this is going to fundamentally change companies and software companies selling to other companies. So this is going to change B2B because before asking for more headcount and resources, which means new tools, teams must demonstrate why they cannot get what they want done with AI. What do you think about that? Do you think it's going to be harder now to be in B2B SaaS when everyone's using AI and they could just, like you said, build it themselves?
Mm. I'm not sure if harder, but I like I said before, it's a paradigm shift, and I think there's now a lot of applications you don't need anymore
Yes.
because they can just be generated. Another thing I would say is it is it right to say it lifts the tide? It's so
Yes, it lifts the tide or raises the bar.
yeah, it raises the bar, but for everybody. So
Exactly.
but not for people who don't use it. So I mean, AI is accessible to everybody. If you're not using Cursor today, your competitor is using Cursor.
Yeah.
And you need to be careful, of course. It is not good at everything, but it is good at a lot of things. And yeah, if you're not doing it, that's a problem. And one thing on the fifth part, before asking for more headcount and resources, teams must demonstrate why they cannot get what they want done using AI. You could also remove AI from this sentence and replace it with existing resources.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, from a business point of view, you always need to demonstrate that you cannot do something with existing resources. So I think it makes sense, and then essentially what Toby is saying here, yeah, before asking for more people, try to see what you can do with the existing people and leverage AI more. And to be honest, um,
I like
you
it.
know, there's complexity in communication when you add people. So let's say you
Yeah.
have a team of 8 people, and if you think you need 3 more, the complexity of communication between 8 people and 11, it is not like 1/3 more. It is much more complex. And I think what AI means in this context is you can still have this two pizza team, like 7 to 8 devs, but with AI they can now do more. So they are even more dangerous. They are even more powerful. So yeah, I think essentially what AI does, again, it's making small teams more powerful. It's good for small startups.
Yeah, and I like what he said there is like, what would this look like with autonomous AI agents? We're already part of the team. It's what you said, like, how can we do more with the resources that we have? And then if you go a little bit further, this is amazing. Everyone means everyone. So Shopify isn't just developers. You have a lot of different roles in there. So you have HR, you have operations, you have legal. And what's amazing is now that everybody within the Shopify company, I think how many employees they have, 1,500 or something like that, is expected to be using AI. And what's great is when leaders of big companies, and we always say big companies like cruise ships because a cruise ship needs a couple miles to finally stop and turn. But he's putting this in front of them right now. He's saying we need to get ahead of the curve. And I'm going to be honest with you, Jens. I think this is just one company that's about to follow suit. You're going to start seeing every other company doing the exact same thing. And you're also seeing it with companies like Cursor. I mean, they went from 0 to 200 million ARR in like a year and a half. And it's because these companies are open to adopting AI. Everybody is. They're skipping their procurement. They're jumping through everything to get AI into their company because I feel like it's a lot of FOMO. A lot of companies don't want to get left behind on the AI train. What do you think?
I mean, if Shopify is doing it, it means the competition must follow almost.
Yeah.
I think we will all get into this direction, and I think also we see it inside our own company. A lot of people, a lot of our developers are using Cursor now. Uh, Again, like there's parts where it doesn't work. For example, in our router, it is very hard to wipe code a query planner for graphical federation. You cannot easily do it, but um, yeah, for many cases, it's good.
Yeah, well said. And then final thoughts on this mandate that he put. To me, it's signaling the shift of the tide, but it's what you said. We're so early in on it. Like it's actually quite amazing. And you said one thing is that people building business apps, and I'm going to give you like a real life example. So my mom, she has a pediatric clinic. She wants to build a dashboard. Let's say pre 5 years ago, she would have to go and hire a developer. He would have to go to QuickBooks or whatever, integrate all that data, and then he would be able to build the dashboards for her. It's long, it's expensive, it takes time. Now, fast forward to today, she could just talk to Cursor, or she could just talk to, let's say, Claude, right there. She doesn't even have to go into an IDE. She could just talk to it. Do you think though that like they can just prompt it already, but or is it easier for us because we're developers that we kind of know how to talk to systems? Where do you see the curve of like an average person, let's say a small business owner? How are they going to interact with AI and like how are they going to learn? Is it going to be like, like taking classes of how to use the computer? It's like, okay, this is how you talk to AI. This is the context that you give it. How do you see that going forward?
Mm. I think it's going to be a bumpy road because we have so much knowledge. For us, it's all simple. But you know, the first thing you just said, oh, I can just go to QuickBooks and use the API. What is an API? Like your mother
Exactly.
will not understand. So
Yeah.
I think the first piece of the puzzle is we need to. So MCP is really cool, and I think there's a chance that we turn MCP into Lego bricks, where you can just say like, okay, MCP. Let's just say it's like a little box or a connector or a cable, and I can somehow plug it into my Claude desktop or whatever.
Yeah.
And we currently see this is not yet the case. For example, Dustin just showed us how do you enable MCP in Cloud Desktop. You need to find the developer settings page, then you enable MCP, and then you open a JSON file where you have to put
Yeah.
your cursor config, your MCP config. Yeah, unfortunately, that is not the experience we can give to non-technical people. Um, but I think what we will see in the future is like marketplaces for these MCP connectors, and I think we will see things like Cursor, but for humans. So for normal people, with not with code, I like it needs to be a different level of abstraction, and I'm super curious to see what kind of applications people will be able to develop. But I think the one of the first big problems we have to solve is yeah, abstracting away the complexity of APIs, making APIs easier to grasp for everybody.
Do you see a future where we won't even need APIs, where just MCP can go and just not even an
Do
API,
you
but
do
just
you know what MCP is?
It's basically an API.
It's an API.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, like, yeah, no,
Do you know this turtles all the way thing?
no, what is that?
Like, let me check.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is like, let's say a website doesn't have an API. Could AI and MCP go and still grab all the data from that website by just like, let's say, crawling it or whatever? Do you think that'd be possible?
What, crawling a website?
Yeah,
And then what?
but like it gets all the information. Like if it was if it was an API, is that like say a website doesn't have an API or a product, but MCP can go and just grab all the information from it as if it were an API.
I think it would definitely be like technically possible. Yes. One of the big issues is we're building HTML websites with interactive React for humans. So there was a time in like when you were very young. I was a little bit less young, but I mean I'm also not so old in terms of the internet. But there was a time when the internet, the www, it was actually mostly HTML and a little bit of CSS.
Yeah,
And we have turned the internet into a whole mess with JavaScript. And yeah, LLM cannot really do so much with it. So you could, or you would have to build a browser, like a headless browser, and then like an agent could use this headless browser to go through the web and do things for you. It could kind of work,
yeah.
but yeah, I think APIs or MCP, it would just be much easier. Like just give me the JSON thing and I can do something with it.
No, I agree. And you said you wanted to show something with the turtles. What was that?
uh yeah, like if you Google turtles all the way, but
I can see. Hold up.
the, the, the idea is essentially that if you look through it, it's all just turtles, and then there are small turtles, and it's with APIs. Like
Oh, you have
it's
infinite regress. Okay, I see it.
yeah, it's APIs all the way. Like everything is APIs. Like your phone is APIs, and even if it's MCP, it's still APIs.
Okay, very cool. I actually have never heard that before. I always learn something new on the podcast.
Okay, what next? Security.
Yeah, let's talk about this. So this week there was I'll actually bring it up, a Hacker News post, which was the S in MCP stands for security. And actually, let me jump into the post. And he posted it on Medium, and it went pretty viral on Hacker News. It was on the top page, but the M and SCP stand for security. I didn't actually read the post, but Jens, walk us through what was happening with the post, and then kind of like the discussion that was happening in Hacker News, as well as obviously the oxymoron, the S and MCP stands for security. Like, what do they mean by that?
Um, I think the first thing, by the way, I'm not sure how much value we get from just showing it all the time, but yeah,
I'll
I
jump
think
out. Yeah, I'll jump out. Don't worry.
so I think the first thing we need to talk about with MCP is there's two models how you can run an MCP server. So one way is you have an MCP server that runs over standard input output. And
Hmm.
then there's a second way how an MCP server could run over SSE. So it actually exposes a server, and now this server is subject to whatever you send there, and whatever people do with it. And so we have to distinguish these two cases. To give you an example, in our case, we added we added an MCP server to the Cosmos CLI WGC. And this MCP server, it actually only supports standard input output. So that
Okay.
means you start the server, and then to have it do something, you need to send a JSON RPC message into the standard input, and you get a response via standard output. What this means in terms of security is um, I can have a CLI like WGC. It accepts parameters and it returns data to standard output. We're now doing the same thing with MCP, except we're doing it over the MCP protocol. So,
Okay.
in terms of security, it runs in the context of the user. And if you have permissions to do things, then the MCP CLI has permissions to do things. So it's exactly the same context, but we're not exposing a server of sorts, or we're not, like, there's no port open or whatever. So in terms of security, it's as secure or insecure as running any other CLI on your computer. So it's
Yeah.
not really changing anything, to be honest. It's just uh, we're giving a more descriptive way, or we have a more descriptive way of communicating over standard input output. So that
Okay.
is one way of using MCP. And then there's another way of using MCP, which, by the way, it's not yet so widely adopted. For example, Cursor or Claude Desktop. I'm not sure on Cursor actually, but Claude Desktop, we know it currently doesn't support SSE.
Yeah.
SSE, if you don't know, it's just like a little bit, like a little bit more fancy way of doing HTTP
Okay.
with some quirks. You can stream a response, but other than that, it's actually more or less just HTTP. And so the problem with this is, let's say you start an MCP server, and let's say it can read and write in your file system, and you
Damn.
start the server with SSE enabled.
Yeah.
So what now can happen is all sorts of super dangerous things, because I can create a website, and this website, well, there might be content policies, but let's say I can create apps or stuff that runs on your local machine, like an npm repository. And when you run an npm library, I can build something into it that searches all ports on the local computer and tries to figure out if there is an MCP server listening. And if there's an MCP server, I can introspect it and figure out what kind of tools does it give me. And if there's an MCP server that allows me to read and write in the file system,
Yeah. Damn.
it means I can now read your files and I can manipulate your computer. So if I have write access to your computer, I could write a script that runs every time the computer starts, and it does whatever I want. So I now have kind of free access to your computer. And these are super dangerous things. So yeah, I think like, there's people who build, for example, MCP servers for WhatsApp, and you can build like MCP servers for whatever. And if you open them up, even on the local machine, it is one thing, and now you're vulnerable to all sorts of attacks on your local machine. But maybe you're even doing other mistakes. Let's say you create an MCP server, you listen on 0.0.0.0, so you listen on all ports. Let's say somehow your computer is accessible through the network, even if it's just a local network. It now means all devices on your local network can find your MCP server. And
Yeah.
by finding your MCP server, they can now read your WhatsApp messages. Is that what you want to do? So yeah, and combine this with wipe coding, and it's now so easy to wipe code an MCP server. I think it's a super dangerous times, because now everybody can, yeah, with a couple of prompts, they can write an MCP server. uh, I don't know. On the one side, I'm super excited about the possibilities of MCP. On the other side, there are many possibilities how MCP can be exploited. If you want to be on the safe side, yeah, build MCP servers with standard I/O, because then, yeah, if you can do stupid things on your terminal, then MCP can also do these stupid things on your terminal. Like it's not worse than if you type some stuff into your terminal. So yeah, long
No,
story
well,
short.
I know, but have you seen? It's actually kind of funny. This guy, he vibe coded like a startup over the weekend, something like simple, but he was using MCP or whatever, and he vibe coded it. So he didn't have very technical knowledge, and he released it on Twitter, and he's like, "Yo, like building in public, this is what I've built," and people were like, "Wow, that's awesome." And he's like, I completely vibe coded it, so it was really, really tough. And this pretty experienced developer, he went in very quickly and he identified that vulnerability, like that he can get access to the application. And so he just started messing with him. Like he would take away the Stripe payments because the guy was making money from this app. So he removed Stripe and then he would mess up with the app or whatever. And he, like, the guy goes back onto Twitter. He's like, help, I'm being like hacked. I don't know how he's hacking me. Like, whatever. I just vibe coded it. And the hacker himself, he wrote him, you have a week before I come back. I hope I'm teaching you a lesson that you cannot just vibe code things. You need to understand how they work. And people were like, I kind of respect him. Like he's teaching you a very valuable lesson. Like he could destroy you right now, but instead he's like removing buttons or doing some simple stuff because he got access to your application. But he's like, you're handling people's money, you're handling people's information. You should at least know the basics of how to safeguard these things. And it came from this exact thing from here right here with the MCP is that there was a port open, he gained access. Eventually, he released a report of how he did it. It was obviously anonymous because he didn't want to get in trouble, but the guy ended up deleting his app. And I think you're spot on with that is that we're going to see a lot and a lot more unsecure apps. Maybe it'll get better from just like vibe coding and that it puts in the correct security protocols into place. But you're absolutely right. With vibe coding, you're opening up a whole bucket, I guess, of attacks if you don't really know what you're doing. What do you think?
I mean, I'm now a few more than, I don't know how many years, 10, 12, whatever years doing software, and uh, I learned coding in the pre-wipe coding era.
Yeah.
if,
I don't know
if
how
if
you
that's
did
the
it.
thing,
Yeah.
and we had to learn the fundamentals. And the funny thing is, just today I had a, maybe he's listening, but I for me this is funny. So one of my colleagues, he said like, hey, I'm currently in a hospital and I want to clone something,
Oh, but he
and
can't, right?
I
Because of GitHub?
huh?
He can't clone it because
No,
he's in
no.
the hospital, right?
So he wants to clone the repo, and he was like, "Yeah, I get this timeout error. SSH is not working." And like, so you're also like a vibe coder. So SSH is not working. What's the problem? What is the hospital doing?
I think they're blocking from GitHub because I know in hospitals you can't like bring down repos for protection from the hospitals. Am I right there?
Yeah,
Kinda. They
no.
don't want you. They don't want you to bring down some malicious repo into
Okay,
their
well,
system and their
what
network.
is port 22?
Uh, I don't know, just like a port on a computer.
It's the SSH port.
Okay.
So the hospital is, for whatever reason, they are just allowing like port 80, probably, maybe not even 80, but 443, so TLS.
Yeah.
And they obviously block port 22 because, I don't know, maybe it's malicious or whatever. And yeah, so he cannot clone repositories, and because his Git is using SSH. So how could you solve the problem?
Can you use a different port?
There's, yeah, so you could use Git over HTTP,
Hmm.
for example HTTPS, then, and it should be port 443, that should work. Or you could create a proxy, a proxy SSH over TLS. That could also be a possibility. But yeah, it's just, and these are the fundamental. Like a vibe coder will be like, oh, I don't know, like my
I can't
internet's
do
not
it.
working, whatever. But yeah, it's
No, it's true. Like you know the ports like that. and a vibe coder wouldn't be able to know exactly what to do. That's interesting.
But you're in a hospital and you get a timeout when doing SSH. It's kind of very obvious that it must be something with ports or a firewall or something, and now you need to see, okay, which ports are open, and how can I tell my client to use another port or whatever, like how can, yeah.
It's kind of funny though. I wonder, did he manage to fix it though? Once you told him to use a different port?
I don't know, he said he tried some stuff.
No, but you got a good point there. And then, I mean, yeah, we're opening it up into a huge space. Like the S and MCP stands for security. I see it's gonna get interesting these next couple months, these next couple years. I'm excited for that. And then let's transition to the next topic though. So this one, you kind of wanted to show a demo, which I really liked. One sec, there's someone behind me. Sophia just like snuck in to grab something, and I didn't hear her until she was like literally right behind me. It scared the hell out of me. I was like, "What
but
the hell
but
is
but
that?"
your virtual background, it covered it well.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, dude, she was literally like I could have touched her. It was so weird.
We saw nothing.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. But all right, let's shift into the next topic. I want to talk because we're at the halfway mark. Let's show off what we were talking about today with MCP and with Cosmo, and let's just kind of go through it. And we can just kind of explain it to me. You can explain it to me, we can explain it to the audience, and we'll go right into it. Let me know if you want me to share the screen.
Yeah, you can. By the way, today I have to cut at the hour, so we
Yeah,
only
that's
have
fine.
15 minutes left.
Oh my god. All right, sorry guys. It was my fault I started late. It doesn't matter though. All right, quick speed run. Let's go. Cosmo
I,
MCP
I, I
server.
kept prompting you, like, hey, we need to start. Okay,
It's true.
let me get this as far as I can because my screen is left. Okay, you can still hear
Wait,
me, right?
wait, these docs are already live?
Yeah, yeah.
What the heck? Okay, go.
What do you
This is
mean?
great. I thought we were just. I didn't even know that these were live on the website already. This is sick.
What do you think we're doing?
No, I just saw it this morning, and then I find out that the docs like 30 minutes later are already up on the website. I mean, it just shows you how fast we ship. But go ahead. We got 15 minutes. Let's do this.
Okay, so let's assume we have cursor installed. I first want to go a little bit through the docs, and then we can talk a bit about the implementation details. But one thing I want to say about MCP is, so there was a debate a while ago on LinkedIn on should you just build an MCP server and wrap your existing APIs, or should you augment your APIs and build something on top? And
Yeah.
so what I tried to do is I wasn't like, okay, let's slap MCP on top of Cosmo. That was not my intention. My intention was more like, let's look at some workflows and let's try to MCP them. Let's try to really enhance them with MCP. And I give you, like, okay, this is let's get started like super simple. So setting the context doesn't matter. Schema exploration. This is like a super simple case, but here you see, okay, we have a prompt. We say we have our supergraph, we have our namespace. By the way, on setting it up, so just for completeness, you create this thing in your cursor. You need an API key. You get this from our studio, and then you set this up like npx wgc mcp, and that's it. That's all you need to do for setting it up. Okay. First prompt, schema exploration. Very simple one. So let me go to cursor. You see that?
Yeah, I see it. Okay, and what repo do you have up? You just have the Cosmo Mono repo?
1 second.
I can see
Yeah,
it on the left. Yeah, Cosmo and then router. Okay, cool.
yeah. I just need to close some stuff here. Okay, so we have our first prompt. So we need to tell our tools what supergraph to use, what namespace, and then show me the core features of this supergraph.
And you do this in the config file, right?
Yeah, the config file doesn't really matter at this point. It's more like, yeah. Okay, so you see, MCP wants to call a tool. it wants to get my graph from default. Okay. We run it. You see here, schema is coming back. And it wants to get the subgraphs. Okay. It wants to get the subgraphs as well. And even the router config.
This is so cool. It's like what I see is like a human. Okay, let me grab the subgraphs. Let me grab more of the subgraphs. Let me grab the router. I want to understand everything. That's just sick.
Okay, so now you see the architecture. We have a family service, availability, mood, hobbies, the entity model. So we have the employee type, and we have some features with authentication. We can find employees, products, teammates, mutations, subscriptions, advanced features, file uploads. So it's a pretty comprehensive summary of what our API can do. And this is all coming from fetching the supergraph, fetching the subgraphs, and our router configuration from the supergraph. And now we know everything about this thing. Maybe we can ask a follow-up question. For example, show me the schema of the employee type.
I have a question though. Could you ask it? Can you visualize this for me? Like it shows you a picture or visualization of the architecture, or would we have to build that MCP component?
Good question. So here's our employee type.
Yeah.
We now understand the schema. You said visualize the architecture.
Yeah, like I want to see what the federated architecture looks like. So like if I'm a new developer and we're using GraphQL and we have a
Okay.
super graph, I'm like, hey, can you visualize this for me so I can see how each components work together?
I have no clue.
Yeah, I was about to say for the audience and everybody watching, we haven't tried this before. Oh, okay. So you can't. But why can't she visual? That's not too bad.
So what do we have here? Graph TD, client, router, router
Okay.
subgraph, then subgraphs. Oh, this is wait. This is a mermaid diagram,
Okay.
right? Interesting. So we could take this and put it into some mermaid drawing tool, and it could actually this is interesting. You have family, it's a subgraph, and it shows us that it has details and pets, and availability is available. So it actually shows us what is coming from where, which is it's pretty interesting. So it figured out all this information and it can present it. So yeah, very useful. But this was just the first prompt. Okay, so
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting excited. It's crazy.
okay, so here's another thing that's so I call it the dream query workflow, and I think this is for me this is a really cool thing. So
And the
let's
dream
log into
query
Cosmo.
that comes from Yelp, right?
Yes, so I borrowed it from Yelp.
By the way, if you borrow something, you have to give it back. So how are you going to give this back?
I give them credit.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so let's say we have this employees. This will always fail on the first run because we have a weird serverless architecture. Okay, so we have ID, details, forename, surname, format, run. Okay, so you see we have this. So now I give you a simple example. So let's put age here to get the age of everybody.
Yeah,
So it's not working. Why is it not working?
it's not in the schema.
It's not in the schema. Okay, so we do this. We copy this. We
But
go to here.
that's the dream query you want as a front end
That
developer.
that that is my dream query.
Yeah,
Yes,
as a front end
exactly.
developer, that's the information I want to go and get and display to the client. Okay.
Okay, so we put our dream curry and we say supergraph, blah blah blah. So this, and then we say start the dream curry workflow for the following curry.
No way.
Do you see how hard I'm working?
Ah.
I'm an architect. Like I'm very busy, Stefan. I'm fetching the supergraph.
This feels like, you ever see Iron Man where he's like, come on, Jarvis, wake up, let's do it. Just
Jarvis.
yeah, it's literally what it is.
Okay, so we verify.
That's another MCP tool. So you verify it against the in-memory schema. Okay.
Yeah, you see, I this workflow, it tells AI, it gives AI instructions on how to follow this through, and
There's a very cool tool, by the way. And what I'm envisioning is, so we've had to build these MCP tools, but in the next iteration of Cosmo, and the next iteration of everything we build, we'll just have a marketplace of, hey, take this down, do that, hey, do this. Just basically all these MCP tools that you could grab and use for yourself, as well as create your own. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so now you're fetching the subgraphs. It's so cool though, and it's also learning for the person to see how it would like go through and solve the problem. It's very cool. Okay, so now it's calling the schema change proposal workflow. Very cool. And I know what that's going to fit into eventually, but I'm not going to say it on the podcast.
ha.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Let's prepare the schema change. This is
And
crazy.
you know, and here's the thing, like the cool thing is not like I haven't invented the LLM, but what I just did here in this call, for example, so we made a proposal through prompting, and now what the LLM did is we're actually making a verification that the change we want to do, it's actually compatible. And I can show you something. So it wants to verify this again. Okay. And it needs to do that. Okay. Remote schema. That won't work. But I show you something. If we go to our studio, you see here we wanted to do age, right? We
Yeah.
wanted to add this. Look at what it did.
Yeah, it did what? That's insane.
So
It very. Oh my god.
AI, the LLM, added the field age to the employee type in the family service. I think, is it family service? Here, family, yes. And now we can see the schema. The schema is here, employee.
And his age.
It has details and age. So just by prompting, we have
You did
a
it.
proposal to add the age to the employee type. And I don't know, I think it's very powerful because we just went from a curry, from our dream curry, to how we could turn that into, and you know, like this is not even like, don't think too much about this like advertising in terms of, hey, Cosmo is cool, blah blah blah. It's not about that. That's not why I'm showing it. I'm showing it more like, think about your existing tools, and if you expose the right things through MCP, this is what is possible. This is where you can go. And then I can show you another example.
Wait,
So
so
this was
if you query now for age, it'll pop up, right? On the playground?
no, like we haven't changed the schema.
Okay. But we just made
We
a
just,
proposal and a change and
yeah,
everything. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, we just checked how could it be possible, etc.
Insane. And what's cool though, so
So,
is I'm a front end developer and I do the Dream Query workflow. In the old days, I'd have to go and tell my backend developers, hey, can we add this field to this type so that way that I can query it from the front end? Now they can just do it with MCP and it gets checked with Cosmo and then they can approve it, basically providing governance on top. It's sick.
but and here's the thing, and this is, I think it's so important for everybody to understand like the impact of MCP. But here are all the tools we have available: list subgraphs, get subgraphs, introspect subgraph, subgraph verify schema changes, so that the AI can iterate and we can run these checks. Then for the supergraph, list supergraphs, fetch supergraph router config, fetch supergraph subgraphs. And then for schema
Wow.
evolution, the schema change proposal workflow, actually it's not really doing anything. All it does is it prints out a playbook for the AI what to do and
Yeah.
which tools to use to go to a proposal. And then the stream query workflow, which is essentially also just text that tells the LLM what to do. And then really powerful verify query against remote schema, verify query against in-memory schema. This is kind of like what kicks the workflow off, because in the beginning you have a query, it's not working, so you verify that. And this is what I think people need to understand with MCP. You need to build workflows where AI can iterate. So it can
Yeah.
start with something, it can try something, and then you tell it, okay, try a schema design, but run this check workflow to verify your work. And then it runs the check workflow. The check, it will run our composition library behind the scenes and other checks, and it will tell you what is wrong. And then you can iterate based on this information. And yeah, this makes this workflow happen. Changelog, another one, and this is also something I wanted to show you: verify router config and Cosmo router config reference. So this is essentially we have embedded the JSON schema specification for our router config into this tool.
Yes.
We also have a documentation search, but by embedding the JSON schema, we can do really cool things. So I show you something. So here is my config. You see, very simple config. Okay,
Yep.
let's do something. So yeah, tell me what you want to enable on your Cosmo router, because
Uh
you're not an expert. You are a good guinea pig.
yeah, this is not bad. So like maybe like Otel? If I wanna could that work?
Okay, so help me to enable hotel metrics and tracing in my Cosmo router.
And one step further, so if I wanted to pipe this information of OTel metrics and tracing from the Cosmo router to Datadog, could I also ask it and it would tell me like how I would do that?
But I don't know. Depends on the model. Let's go step by step.
Okay.
So enable hotel metrics and tracing into the router, and then we say my config is this, and then we say oops, new, okay, config, look into the Cosmo router reference and the docs to find information. And then we say, make sure to verify the correctness of the config. So you see, it's a little bit of prompting, but at the same
Yes.
time, I don't need to look into the docs how to enable hotel. I just do this little bit of prompting, and let's see what we get. So first of all, it wants to look into the Cosmo router config reference. So this loads the JSON schema of our config into
Yeah.
the
And then it
context.
searches the docs.
Now it searches also the docs to get some more info. And it seems like it already has an idea of how to do it. So that's pretty good. So it adds telemetry here. I don't know if it's right. Like I'm not an expert in this part, but it will verify that the configuration is correct.
It does look right though, because when you see the tracing, you see the sampling rate.
Metrics, yeah, it could be. So it wants to verify the router config. Okay, it seems right, and this is something you can trust,
Because it verifies it.
because yeah, because we have a JSON schema validation that ensures that everything here is correct, and this follows the JSON schema spec. So this is not validated by an LLM; it's validated by code. And now one thing you mentioned is, let's see, where's our exporter? Ah, here. This is our exporter, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Change this. Blah blah blah. Okay. Uh, can you export the hotel tracing to data doc? It
It's
could be hallucinating now. I'm not sure how it will solve this problem. Um,
by the way, after this example, you do have to jump. So we'll have to cut the podcast a little early.
hmm. Okay, we can go very little over. It's fine. So what did it do? It added Datadog metadata, and here it says Datadog agent OTLP. So now this is cool. It wants to run
To
verify again,
verify. Yeah. And so
and
now it's
so
verified that it's good.
it seems like this is okay, and it also give me some information about headers like DD API key and this. So this might be very interesting, useful. Overall, I think this is pretty cool. Just to give you like another example, so let's say you want to enable WebSocket support. Can
Yeah.
you also enable WebSocket support for subscriptions?
So you're just extending the router just without even looking at the docs. You've added OTel instrumentation, you've added Datadog integration, and now you're enabling WebSocket support.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I want to enable WebSocket support, and because we already have certain information in the context, like our JSON schema for the config. So I know this is right. I think it's right. It looks very right. Like we support the Absinthe protocol. We can forward headers, authentication from initial payload. This all looks good. It now wants to verify again, and yeah, it's valid. And
Sick.
what I find so powerful about this is you now no longer need to be an expert. Plus, you don't need to go through the docs. You stay in your IDE and you're like, hey, this is my router config. I want to do a certain thing. How can I do it? And then it searches through the docs and everything. So yeah, that's what we have so far, with MCP.
Well done.
And
And the workflow too. You never left the IDE once. You just implemented 3 pieces of functionality without ever leaving.
that, but also if you think about it, when we did the schema proposal, we could actually see the results of our work. We could see it in the studio, and we can then visualize the changes and everything. Like you remember how
Yeah.
we found the diff and everything where the field edit. But yeah, overall, I think one observation from my side is previously you would always build user interfaces to interact with the system, especially in the DevTool space. This has shifted. We're now using things like CLIs and Terraform and other methods of interacting with the system. And I think MCP is a new way where you now have your IDE and you just prompt from your IDE, and now it can do these powerful workflows. And essentially your IDE is now like a co-pilot, a workflow manager,
Jarvis.
and you're more high level. And beyond that, what I find interesting is your IDE can now interact with Cosmo Schema Registry, and it can do the same thing with other tools. And I think it's now the time for dev tool makers to think about, okay, how can we elevate the workflows of our users, the developers, and how can we help them automate tasks and work better. And I think this is a very interesting space.
Incredible. We do have to cut it now. We actually hit the full hour. But Jens, what's the good thing?
We're Are we back next week? Because there's this thing called Easter.
I'm off on Monday for Easter.
Are you?
Uh, yeah, that's when I celebrated the 21st. But we'll see.
Okay.
I'll post an update on LinkedIn. If you're off on Friday, we'll then do another episode the week after. But we'll keep you guys updated. The good thing is MCP is now available in WonderGraph Cosmo. That's
Yes,
the
try
good
it
thing.
out. Give us feedback.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. See ya. MCP Jarvis.